The Art of Software.
Welcome back to The Art of Software. I'm Martin Lacey, and we're talking today with Terry Cutler, a renowned cybersecurity expert who helps businesses and persons manage their security risk, as well as help identify and prevent security breaches. So welcome back to the show, Terry.
Great, thanks.
So in this part of the show, I want to get into detection tools. How do businesses go about protecting themselves? We talked before in the previous segment about BitTorrent and that being used as a means to get into your system. So what kind of tools do you have to detect these breaches? If they're encrypted channels, how do you understand that that's actually occurring?
Well, one thing we got to do is load up tools like Wireshark. This allows us to view the packets that are going in and out of the network.
Okay.
And that's one way. And we can look at the what's called a protocol hierarchy, which allows us to see what kind of channels or what kind of how much traffic is going where? Is there a lot of stuff going over SSH? Is there a lot of stuff going over RDP, like
right.
remote desktop? And a lot of the company, we're seeing a lot of companies that don't have a lot of up-to-date technology to even stop these types of new trending breaches or vulnerabilities. I see a lot of companies that still run free antivirus. Right?
Yes.
So and that's a question I get asked all the time. Well, what's the difference between a free version and a paid version? Well, all these virus technologies, these antivirus technologies, are all what's called signature-based. They have to update themselves every couple of hours, and then once an attachment comes through in your email or an attack is happening, they have to see, okay, well, what kind of file is this? Is there any known signatures in here? Yep. Okay, there's something, it blocks it. But if there's not, it lets it through. So there's ways now to manipulate these codes to actually bypass the antivirus. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering how do they manage that? Do they change their signature, or is it a dynamic type of configuration? Like how does that work?
Yeah, they'll modify the code. So or what they'll do is they'll fragment the attack. So for example, whenever I do an intrusion test, I have an option to evade antivirus. And what will happen is it'll come in as a fragmented code, and the antivirus will say, I'm not sure what this is, and let it through. And then I'm in. And But then again, I've also been blocked myself where they had another advanced technology like Malwarebytes, for example, or another type of malware behavioral analysis tool, or software, I should say. The moment I got in and started messing around in the network, the system detected that, hey, this is not normal behavior for this user, and actually cut off my connection.
Oh, okay. So that's where it gets into the behavior, or looking at patterns of usage on the network rather than signature-based.
Absolutely, yeah. Antivirus right now is quickly becoming obsolete. It's still required for frontline of defense but the newer viruses and stuff are bypassing them.
Okay, if I can draw an analogy, it's going from a lock and key mechanism, which allows you into the building, but once you're in the building, you've got retinal eye scan technology to verify your identity and make sure that whatever you're doing is, something that you've done characteristically before. Right.
And now it's also got sensors on the ceilings and stuff to look at movements and such.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that something that businesses are now adopting, or are they still hesitant about that? Or like, at what point do they are they getting into the detection part of the business?
So if we back up for the last 10 years, every time we did an intrusion test, the recommendations were always patch your antivirus, get a patch deployment system in place, and watch what you click on. Right. And then you look at today's recommendations, it's keep your antivirus up to date, make sure you have a patch management system in place, and don't click on any links. It's the same recommendations, right? It's like Groundhog Day 10 years later. But now we have to start looking at other more advanced technologies like honeypots. See, there's ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about honeypots? I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah. So I've been leveraging a technology called active defense since 2013, and this honeypot kind of hacks back in a way, but not hacking back the way you think. The way it works is it does three things to an attacker. It annoys, attributes, and attacks an attacker. So
I'll leave the annoys one.
Yeah. So the way the annoyance works is a hacker will usually launch tools to kind of do a reconnaissance on your network. So it'll run like spiders, right?
Yeah.
And the moment that it hits the honeypot, it'll go into what's called recursive folders. And it'll make the tool kind of loop into these recursive folders. And eventually, after several hours, the log file on the attacker's computer is going to fill up and crash the tool. Right? So there's nothing worse than for IT guys' tools to be running all night only to be crashed in the morning.
Yeah, and have no results.
Exactly. So by leveraging these types of techniques, it allows us to notify the company or the administrator saying, hey, you know what, there's an advanced intruder in your system right now. You should get on your toes, like get on guard, you know?
It's kind of like a reverse denial of service.
Right. And then we go into the attribution part where we can set up, let's say, a fake Cisco control panel. And the attacker will get on this and get a pop-up that says, hey, you're accessing a restricted system. We have the right to scan your system for the latest patches, scan for antivirus and whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then that's that Java box window, and it says, do you consent? Yes or no? So the hacker's going to say, yeah, I consent. And all of a sudden, I'm going to run a site survey tool on his computer, and hopefully he's running a laptop. And what will happen is it'll scan all the Wi-Fis in his area. So his neighbors will triangulate me within 5 meters of his computer.
I love it.
I will know up to 5 meters. I even know what side of the house he's on or building he's on. And so even if he's coming through a bit like a Tor network, where he's coming through various VPNs and whatever, it doesn't matter because it's his neighbors telling me where he is.
Oh, that's sweet.
And then with the attack part, I would have the capability to turn on his webcam, take a picture, send it back to me and say, yep, it was this guy behind the screen when it happened. But now I just violated a privacy law because these bad guys have privacy laws too.
All right.
So without a warrant, I can't get to that step. And that's a very difficult piece that we're missing in our investigation practices right now is that how do you know that John Doe was behind the screen when this happened?
Right.
I wish I could tell you, and I could have told you, but I'm not allowed to tell you, you know?
Right. I mean, and that's, I guess, where the legal and ethical concerns come into play. I mean, although you're dealing with a bad guy who's obviously done made the first move,
right?
You can't punch him back.
But the beauty is that, you know, if you've documented this system in place that, hey, you know, Mr. Judge, this is our system, right? We have all these pop-ups and warnings that, hey, this is your restricted system. Do you consent? And the hacker consented by clicking yes. So it's kind of like somebody going up to your backyard, hopping your fence, and landed in a bear trap. Oh, shit, well, you just shouldn't have jumped the fence. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's I guess in the States, you know, it's the do not trespass or be shot.
Exactly. Except we're stunning them in this case.
Yeah, we've got stun guns, but still.
Yeah.
Squirt guns.
We've got squirrels.
But they bite.
So that's it. So I mean, this is a technology that's been around for a couple of years now, but it's so gray area that the laws and the lawyers are not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So it needs more awareness on this.
Yeah. Are we? I guess we're waiting for legal precedent, or like it seems to really tangle with you know, the nuances of the law rather than the technical aspect of, you know, finding who these guys are. I mean, technically, you know, as you say, we've got the tools. If we can triangulate, you know, at least within our own country boundaries, we should be able to prosecute.
And the other problem with law enforcement is that they're overworked, understaffed, unfortunately. So, a lot of times they'll take sergeants and then that have been on the field for so long. Now you're trying to convert them into cybersecurity experts.
Right.
And it's extremely difficult. So, these guys have another 10, 20 years before they retire or less. And they just, they don't use Excel on their computer. That's as far as their training would go.
Right, being thrust into this whole world of technology where the evidence is bits and bytes.
That's it.
It's a whole crossing the chasm issue again for law enforcement to try and step up to the game of what's going on in technology space. I never even thought about that. That's an interesting dynamic on it.
And I think what's going to happen is like I work for Circle, right, which is a private investigations firm.
Yes.
And which is kind of like the private police. So what we're expecting to happen is that law enforcement is going to partner with PI firms like ours to offload some of this expertise to folks that do it. Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but the only problem is, like I said, any false move, we can crash the case.
Right.
So
well, yeah, that's the rub with technology, though. You have to take a step back and think a bit more practically, and you enlist the experts in whatever domain you're going into, rather than trying to acquire those skills.
Yeah.
It's the same in any kind of software development effort. You want to make sure you have the right skills at the right time to do the job, and you don't necessarily have to train the people that you have to do that.
Right. I mean, going to talk about the developers, for example. I mean, their job is to build software and get it deployed as quickly as possible within budget.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of constraints on the software side of things, and security sadly is not forefront.
That's it. And then we could talk about software development life cycles, for example. So that's also something we have to talk about shortly.
Yes. We're going to go for another quick break here, Terry, and then we'll come back and we'll get back into software development and creating a secure environment, and further on to detection and prevention. So
Perfect.
Please continue on with us, with Terry Cutler and myself. It's awesome to talk to Terry and get some of these insights. We'll be right back with The Art of Software and Terry Cutler on Voice America.